Somewhere inside your body, right now, there is DNA from a species that science cannot name. Not Neanderthal, not Denisovan, not anything with a label, a skull, a face, or a single bone in a single museum drawer anywhere on Earth. We know it exists. We can see its fingerprints scattered across the human genome, but we have never found its body. We don't know what it looked like. We don't know what it called itself, if it called itself anything at all. And it's inside you. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at your own reflection differently. Here's something most people never think about. Your DNA isn't really yours. It's a patchwork, a quilt stitched together from thousands of ancestors, some human, some not quite. For most of the 20th century, we assumed Homo sapiens was a clean, single lineage. One species, evolving in isolation, eventually spreading out of Africa to conquer the planet. Simple story, a comforting story. It's wrong. In 2010, geneticists sequenced DNA from a tiny finger bone found in a Siberian cave called Denisova. The bone belonged to a young girl. But when scientists compared her DNA to modern humans, something strange happened. She wasn't human. She wasn't Neanderthal either. She was something else entirely, a completely unknown branch of the human family tree, hiding in the fossil record for tens of thousands of years, discovered from a single pinky bone the size of a pebble. They named her lineage the Denisovans, and then they checked living humans, specifically people from Melanesia, Papua New Guinea, parts of Southeast Asia, and found her DNA still running through their veins. Up to 5% of their genome in some populations comes from her people. That discovery cracked something open. If one unknown human species could hide in our DNA for 40,000 years undetected, how many others were still hiding? The answer, it turns out, is more than you'd want to believe. Here's where the story gets genuinely unsettling. Geneticists studying modern African populations, groups like the Yoruba in Nigeria, and hunter-gatherer populations like the Baka and Biaka in Central Africa, started noticing something in their genomes that didn't match anything known. Fragments of DNA too old, too divergent, too strange to have come from modern humans, Neanderthals or Denisovans. Statisticians ran the math. The patterns pointed to interbreeding with an archaic human population that split off from our lineage possibly over 1 million years ago, long before Neanderthals even existed as a separate group. Some estimates suggest this mystery population and modern humans diverged, then merged again, potentially as recently as 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. Scientists gave it a placeholder name, a ghost population. Not because it's spooky, well, partly because it's spooky, but because it's a lineage that exists only as a statistical shadow. No skull, no skeleton, no cave paintings, no tools we can definitively attribute to them. Just an echo, preserved in the DNA of the living, like a radio signal from a transmitter nobody can locate. Think about what that actually means. There was a group of humans, or human-like beings, walking the earth, breathing, eating, raising children, dying, generation after generation, and the only reason we know they existed at all is because their genes are still quietly running the biological software inside people alive today. They left no monument, no grave marker, no name, except the one hidden in your blood. And here's the part that should really bother you. Africa isn't the only place this is happening. This ghost lineage phenomenon has now been detected in multiple regions of the world, completely independent of each other, which means we're not talking about one missing species. We might be talking about several. You might be wondering, if there's no fossil, no bone, no physical evidence at all, how can scientists claim this species existed with any confidence? Isn't this just guesswork? It's not guesswork. It's forensic genetics, and the logic is surprisingly elegant. When two populations diverge and evolve separately for a long time, they accumulate genetic differences, mutations that build up like sediment layers, generation after generation. When those populations later interbreed, the foreign DNA doesn't blend in seamlessly. It sticks out. It shows up as unusually long, unusually divergent chunks of genetic code, sitting inside an otherwise ordinary human genome, like finding a paragraph written in a completely different font buried inside a novel. Geneticists can measure how divergent those fragments are, which tells them roughly how long ago the two populations split apart. They can measure how long the fragments are, which tells them roughly how recently the interbreeding happened, because DNA segments get chopped up and shuffled a little more with every generation that passes. Using this method, researchers have reconstructed ghost lineages the same way astronomers detect planets they've never actually seen, not by observing the object directly, but by observing its gravitational effect on everything around it. We haven't found the species, we found its gravity. So what were these unnamed relatives actually like? We genuinely don't know. And that's the most honest and most unsettling answer science can give right now. But we can make educated guesses based on the pattern of other archaic humans we do have evidence for. Neanderthals were stockier than us, with larger brow ridges, adapted to cold European climates, and we know from actual skeletons that they buried their dead and may have created symbolic art. Denisovans, based on that single finger bone and a handful of teeth and a jaw fragment, appear to have been robust, with some genetic evidence suggesting adaptations for high-altitude survival, genes that modern Tibetans still carry today, letting them thrive at elevations that would leave most humans gasping for oxygen. If these ghost populations followed a similar pattern, they were likely also physically and cognitively human enough to interbreed successfully with our ancestors and produce fertile offspring, which itself is remarkable, because interbreeding across too much evolutionary distance simply doesn't work in most animal species. That means whatever this unnamed lineage was, it was close enough to us, biologically, perhaps even behaviorally, to be family in every sense of the word. We just never got to meet them. Or if we did, nobody who witnessed it left a record we've been able to find. Here's the idea I want to leave you with, because it's bigger than genetics. For most of human history, we told ourselves a story of purity, a single lineage, marching forward in a straight line from ape to modern human. That story was always false, but now we can actually prove it's false, letter by letter, written into our own cells. You are not descended from one thing. You are the living result of a species that met, merged, and absorbed other kinds of humans. Some we've named, and at least one, possibly several, that we haven't. Species that vanished so completely that fossils failed to preserve them. That time erased almost every physical trace of them, and yet they didn't disappear. They just stopped being separate. They became part of us. In a very real sense, you are a memorial, a living, walking archive for a species that has no name, no headstone, and no one left to remember them, except 7 billion strangers who unknowingly carry pieces of them forward, one generation at a time. Somewhere in your genome, right now, there's a message from someone who has been extinct for tens of thousands of years. Nobody wrote it down. Nobody meant to send it. But it arrived anyway. Scientists are still hunting for the fossils that could finally give this lineage a face and a name. Every year, new caves are excavated, new ancient genomes are sequenced, and the picture keeps getting stranger, not simpler. If this blew your mind even a little, that's exactly why I make these videos, to take the weirdest, most overlooked corners of science and put them in front of you in a way that actually sticks. If you want to keep going down rabbit holes like this one, subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. And next time someone tells you they know exactly who they are, remind them that their own DNA is still keeping secrets, even though science hasn't cracked it yet. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.